On that note, let's get started. And the way we're going to start is with 3-minute opening statement. Your timekeeper's there. I'm going to ask you all if you would sit so that we can, is that okay with all of you? Because that'll keep people from getting up and down and stuff. So, Dale, take it away.
Justin, you guys hear me?
There we go.
Okay. First, I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I know Mondays are usually a pretty busy schedule for people, and I really appreciate all of you coming out. Look. My name is Dale Ball. Asking you to vote for me as your District 2 County Supervisor. As a concerned citizen, I've attended countless city council, board of supervisors, town halls, just about any kind of meeting I can attend for the last 5 years, trying to come up with better solutions for our county. Seeing the need to remove messes left behind by illegal encampments, I co-founded Shasta Support Service, which has removed hundreds of tons of trash from this community. We've volunteered thousands of hours out in this community. We were just at One Safe Place Craft Feed this weekend, which we've been doing for the last 6 years. We help veterans organizations, and just about anybody in the community that needs help. I never dreamed of running for political office, but here I am. I grew up in Shasta County. I graduated from Anderson High School, and like most of you, I went off to earn a paycheck each week. I believe in evidence-based solutions to improve our public. I've witnessed the impact of homelessness, addiction firsthand. I've seen what works and what only enables bad behavior. I sat on the board of the Continuum of Care for 2 years, so I have a good grasp of what we need to do to fix the homelessness issue in our community. Because over the last decade, it's done nothing but get worse. I am ready, as your supervisor, to hit the ground running on some very good solutions and things that we can do to take care of this problem. I've got to ask you, do you feel better off than you were 12 years ago with crime, homelessness, and the general quality of life in this district? Not just the district, but the whole county. Has the county represented your interests? I'm going to try to keep this short and just ask for your vote March 3rd.
Thank you, Susan.
Hi, my name is Susan Pierce. Have lived in Shasta County for 36 years, except for the time that I joined the Air Force right out of high school, left, and came back here. My oldest is a veteran now. He was in the United States Air Force, and my youngest is now serving in the Navy and stationed overseas right now protecting our USS Truman. I am a volunteer at the West Valley football program. I'm also on I always get it wrong, Reading Host International Alliance Club. I believe that we do need a change in Shasta County, and an integral part of the community is being a connection to the community. I'm a local business owner that's been established for 50 years. Not with me, I'm not that old, but my husband Clyde owns the business too. Sorry. I think that we need to get back to our roots. And 20 years ago, we were the top 10 places to live in Shasta County. An article I read, we're the 17th worst city to live in California, and that broke my heart. And that's why I chose to run. I would like to see our community come back to the way it was. The crime is up, public safety is number one. My dad was a police officer in the Bay Area, so I know what it's like to live through crime. Well, I don't because I grew up here. But I think it's really important that public safety is taken care of in Shasta County. I also believe we own our water. We have the quality and the quantity of the water for California. And we need to protect that water, especially in the rural areas. I do live in the rural areas, and I understand what it's like to live out there with the fire damage, and the fire safety. So it's hard. It's really hard for the rural areas to get a voice because there's so much in the cities that need to be taken care of. And that was one of the other reasons I chose to run. I'm hoping that you will vote for me and that we can make a better place for Shasta County.
Thank you. Leonard?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome tonight. I am your Shasta County District Supervisor for District 2. I am a local. I was born and raised here in this area. Lived here all my life with my wife, who's also a native of this area. We've raised our family here. Went to Shasta High School, and upon graduation, I attended the University of Notre Dame, where I received a bachelor's degree in business management. Once I graduated, I came back to Reading and worked in my father's business for a short time, but then decided, after I'd worked a couple of summers on the Sheriff's Lake Patrol, that I thought I would try law enforcement. It seemed very interesting to me. Well, I spent a 31-year career with the Reading Police Department. During that time, after about 3 years on, I actually took a leave of absence and returned to go to school at USC, where I got my MBA in business finance. But came back to work in Reading because it is a wonderful place to grow up and to be, and I just found it one of the most wonderful places to be anywhere in the United States, and wanted to be here. During my 31-year career at the police department, I worked in every aspect of the department, including traffic, narcotics investigations, property rooms, oversight of administration, everything. And then my last 6 years, I was the police chief, responsible for a $26 million budget and 180 employees and the safety of 90,000 people in our city. Upon my retirement from the police department, I ran for county supervisor and won in 2008, and have served in that capacity since. You know, I wanted to indicate that a lot of people don't realize the full job of a county supervisor. And I will tell you, even myself when I got there did not realize how much bigger it was than the city. I mean, I even served as assistant city manager for 7 months for the city, and found the county was just so much more. It's not just that Tuesday board meeting that people think that they see on TV. It's a host of other assignments that you have, and I actually have a list here of the different boards I sit on behalf of the county. I'll just name off a couple of them for you. Here's the CSAC, State Association of Counties, where we have direct impact on the governor and his budget. There's the Regional Transportation Agency. There's the Sierra Sac Valley EMS Emergency Board that I sit on. I sit on 4 different water boards on behalf of the county, and as I mentioned on some of my material, water rights is a big issue here. We have to make sure we protect the water rights that we have, particularly our groundwater. I'm the Veterans Liaison for our Veterans office here, and to our local veterans that work out at the cemetery. And so it's just a whole host of different issues, and not just one thing. I'm happy to invite Amy to look to my Facebook page to see the issues that I've talked about previously. And I believe there's about 6 major ones. Homeless is one of them, but so is public safety. So is our financial health of our county. So I wish that as we continue through this thing, I'd be happy for you to check out the information I have. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we'll go on to the first question. And the first question will go to you, Susan. Do you support the passage of Measure A? Please explain why or why not.
This is going to be a hard one. I do believe in Measure A. It's a step in the right direction. I believe that we do need the monies to come in to the county. I've been going to the different forums, I've been going to the town hall meetings. I'm not quite sure that it's the right thing to do. We don't have a trust in the Board of Supervisors. We need to get that trust. I do believe that there is other ways that we can raise the money. I think that Measure A is a very detailed document, but there's some words that I didn't care for. The quorum of the 4 to 5 that they have to release if they want to stop the tax, and then also up to 500 beds in the Shasta County Jail. I would rather have an amount, either 300 to 500, just like a set issue.
Thank you. Leonard?
Yes, I do support Measure A. I think what's most important here, this is as close as it can get for you as citizens to have an impact and control what the county does with its budget. Because you get to vote exactly where you want to spend the money. We have detailed this thing down to the hundredths of a percent as to where the money goes. So it's not just kind of vague and maybe some here and some there. It's very clear. If you read through the ordinance, it will be the law if it's passed. We can't go off in some other detail or do something different. The only thing that the board can do is change the percentages of the money between, like how much you go to the Reading Police Department versus maybe the Sheriff's Office. But the programs themselves cannot change. And it takes a 4/5 vote of the supervisors if you want to reduce the tax, but cannot change it as far as where the money is spent. So if you actually want to have control and want to make a difference, this is your chance to do it. I hope that you'll support it.
Thank you. Dale?
We need the money from Measure A. No two ways about it. This county's gotten itself in a hole by giving back over $53 million of money that could have came from the state and built those facilities. But we can't look past, we can't go back and get that money back. It's gone. So this is a kind of a last-ditch effort to try to get the facilities we need to get the accountability for the criminals that are causing ridiculous amounts of problems. Our state has definitely tied our hands with Prop 47, 57, and AB 109, but other counties have been building jail beds to hold criminals accountable, and we have not. For the last decade, we've just not been able to hold these people accountable. We have got 100 extra beds, but it hasn't really helped. So I'm behind Measure A, but I see the community having a really hard time with trust on this one, and it's going to have to be hard to get that 66%. I think we need to have a plan B.
So because this is a tax, it requires a supermajority in order to pass, and that would be 66%. All right, on to question number 2. Leonard, you'll be first on this question. We need more deputy sheriffs out here. Why isn't their pay equal to the RPD?
Very simple. The county doesn't have the money to pay them as much as we would like to. In fact, our county employees are probably as low paid as any county in the North State. I'm sure most of you don't know that 15% of our employees would qualify for food stamps. We just don't pay that much. And so when we hire deputies, many of them, if they're pretty good at what they do, they start looking elsewhere, like to Anderson and Reading, where there's higher paying jobs. It's very difficult with the money we have. Currently, we spend almost 75 to 80% of our discretionary or general fund dollars on public safety. That's how important it is to us. So it's not like we're trying to hold money back. It's just, that's all the money we have. And quite frankly, our motto has always been, we won't spend money we don't have. You don't do it at your house, and we don't do it at ours. That's why we didn't go bankrupt like Stockton did when they had went through the recession.
Thank you. Dale?
Our deputies are definitely underpaid. We do a great job recruiting young talent. We train them. We get them out there on the streets, and then they get sucked up by RPD or APD or other agencies. We need to do a better job. You do a better job of growing the economy, less restrictions on businesses that want to come here, less restrictions on builders who want to build here. And we grow that tax base so we have the money to pay them a decent wage, because they are definitely underpaid, and we need really in rural areas more deputies. In the jail, we really need more people. I mean, those guys are working stupid hours, ridiculous amounts of overtime. So I'm a big proponent of, getting better pay and more deputies.
Thank you. Susan?
Being a daughter of a police officer, I know how important it is to pay your deputies. Living in the rural area, I know how difficult it is to get a sheriff's deputy out to our house. It takes them a while. If they're on one side of town and they got to come to the other and there's only a few, you don't get the coverage right away. There's priorities that they have to take. They have to take it from the crime level, and that makes it difficult. If you're feeling you need a deputy, you need a deputy. I understand the budget, just as Supervisor Modi said. I really understand that it's very hard to pay what they pay in other areas, so we lose them. And we get kind of the older generation of deputies that come up here. We need to get the younger deputies to come up and help us. We need to look into it to get a better budget.
Thank you. For the two of you over there, there are a couple seats here. Okay, just checking in. This is question number 3. Dale, you will be first to answer this question. Do you favor the expansion of the Crystal Creek asphalt aggregate on Iron Mountain Road with the accompanying EIR and air quality repercussions? Why or why not?
Unfortunately, I have not yet get to see that EIR. So it's hard to make an informed decision without actually reading that whole report. So I'm not well educated on that subject.
Thank you.
Is it even available yet? Because last time I asked, it was not.
I do not know the answer to that question. Susan?
I'm going to say the same thing. We haven't had a lot of information on it yet. We get a lot of the environmental impacts on outside of the area, especially on the eastern side. So that's something that I need to research further before I make a comment.
Thank you. Leonard?
Yeah, that study's not done yet. It's way premature. Probably you're talking another 4 or 5 months before that comes forward. The project is looking to expand the gravel aggregate operations of the business. There is talk about there may be an asphalt plant that hasn't been finalized, so that's still something that has to come up. Certainly, it'd be hard for any of us, I think, to speak to this issue without having the EIR report and know what kind of impacts. I know there's some people who live out there who are concerned, there's others who are not, but I certainly will always keep an open mind to what comes forward to the board and get all the information before I make a decision. It would be a little premature to make a statement one way or the other without having the information, all the information.
Thank you. Susan, you're going to answer the next question first. And the next question is, should Shasta County continue to bail out special districts such as Jones Valley Water or Centerville Water District, etc.? Bail them out.
They live in Shasta County and they need their water. I totally agree. We have to find the money to keep the water going. They're small areas in Shasta County. Those people deserve just as much protection as Reading does. Water is very important for survival. It's a necessity of life. And if they're not bringing the income in from those areas, Shasta County needs to step up and help them out.
Thank you. Leonard?
Well, first of all, there's two different types of districts. Centerville is an independent water district, such as the same as Bella Vista. So they have their own elected board and they have their own rates that they collect to pay for their system and for their water. Jones Valley is what's considered a CSA, a county service agency. And what in this particular case, they're not big enough, same as Keswick, to operate their own district. So they turn to the county to run it for them. But the county does not own that district and does not pay for that. The ratepayers have to pay for it, just like they do in Bella Vista and City of Reading and other places. So we do not bail them out. They have to pay their way and they have to raise their rates to cover their costs. So it's water is a serious situation, but they're on the hook for it, just like any other private or independent water district is.
Dale?
I think he covered the two districts, so I'm not going to waste your time going over that again. Yes, the ones that are completely county, there's been a lot of problems with the Jones Valley, but they also put in a whole new infrastructure out there that costs money, and that not really fair that the rest of the county has to pay for that infrastructure. They've got a lot better water system than the wells they had that were drying up and everything else. So I have a really hard time asking everyone else in Shasta County to pay for one small little area. Now the other one, like you said, has an elected board, and that they should be able to figure it out and keep things going without county money going into that.
Thank you. Leonard, I think you're first. Were you first on the last one? I lost track somewhere. I think you were, Leonard. I am right. You looked at me with that look like, I'm not answering that question. Are you in favor of the proposed Dollar General store in Centerville? What impacts will this have on the safety of students at Grant School?
Well, first of all, I'm not in favor of the dollar store being located near the Grant School. Quite frankly, I'm just sort of dumbfounded about why they think that's a good financial model to put it out here. I think it's, if I was going to, in my car driving already, I would continue on into the holiday market or someplace that is a regular business. The Dollar General does not make any sense to me to be putting it at that location. I guess the concern about Grant School is does it attract the children to come over there and buy products that maybe not be as healthy as they might get at the here in the cafeteria at the school. But yeah, I would not support that.
Dale? Dale?
You know that for
No clapping, no clapping.
I was giving you the floor on that. Not in favor of this close. I mean, I think there's so many other locations that we could say are better locations. Just not right here next to the school. I just don't see it.
Thank you, Susan.
I agree. When you have the traffic that it'll bring in, they do need something. I mean, they have the holiday market down the street, but building near schools and the kids watch that and then they go in and buy their candy and those kind of things, I do totally agree with the two other people up here. So there are other locations that they can get one built, and they tried to get one out in the Happy Valley area also. And they need to look around and see where the people live and make it a little easier to do it. But by a school, no, I disagree with that.
Thank you. Dale, you're first on the next question. And we had 17 questions on this issue. Just want you to know that we heard all 17 of them and we put them in one question. Would you please speak to the concept of the proposed tiny housing project on West 299, the Noah Village?
There's definitely been a lot of talk about this, and I've met with the people who are proposing this. I had a lot of questions for them. They answered most of them. This was months and months ago. I have a time I'm supposed to meet with them next week to get a little more information on this. But we really need to look at this seriously. And I don't really see how this concept is going to be able to work with an EIR or anything else, because I know that a lot of people that live in the area are just not going to want to have this happen. I mean, it is a tough situation. We need to deal with the homeless without a doubt. But I'm just not sure this is the greatest place to be doing it. And the county won't have much control at all because it will be on BLM property.
Thank you. Susan?
It depends on who they're going to accept into this camp. We have a couple levels of the homeless. We have the ones that have addiction problems. We have ones that have mental health issues. But we also have the ones that cannot afford to live in an apartment because the median income is too low. So if they would give applications that who wants to live out there, but if they're going to give it to the people that are just living on the streets and destroying Reading, I don't think it's a good idea, because it's just going to look out there. But also the other issue on that, are they really going to go out there because they need the handouts? They need to be where the people are, and they know that. So it sounds to me that it's more like a concentration camp. You're going to send them out there, and are they going to come back? I didn't mean it like that. But I'm just saying that how are they going to get back into Reading from out 299?
Thank you. Leonard?
Yeah, I had an opportunity to speak with a couple of the organizers of this. They're modeling this project off of something in Austin, Texas, where it's not necessarily a homeless camp. It's supposed to be more like a living quarters or trailers and some small homes. I have a lot of difficulty with it. I certainly don't think it belongs where they're proposing it. I think there's a lot of issues that come up right off the get-go, which is the water, supply of water. Old Shasta has water concerns even now, and they worry about during the drought system or drought season. The fact that there's no transportation, there's no services. I'm very concerned about the septic system. You'd have to have everything on septic, and that's a big issue. So it belongs someplace like in Austin. They did it in the city where they had the infrastructure to support it and the services and transportation available. It doesn't really belong out here next to Old Shasta on the side of the highway.
Thank you. Thank you. Susan, you're first on the next question. Many neighborhoods, particularly maybe in your district, have been damaged by the fire. What efforts is the county making to resolve the issues that have resulted?
What they've accomplished?
Yes. or what else they need to do even.
I do live in Happy Valley, and Happy Valley had a fire 2 years ago, and the growth has been built back up. In 1999, there was another major fire that destroyed the south end of Happy Valley. I am very proud of the Board of Supervisors, and I will give them credit. They found money to use the prison crew to come out and clean our area. They were cleaning it right across the street. They were cleaning out the gully that overlooks Clear Creek. And it was just amazing. I think that is something that needs to be done. There's a lot of older people out in Happy Valley and out in the rural areas that don't have the ability to clean their properties. Fire suppression is a very big issue for me because I live out there and I see the damage. So I would like to commend the board for doing that, and I hope that they can continue in other areas.
Thank you. Leonard?
Well, after the car fire, the first concern was getting it cleaned up. We had talked to a lot of their counties like Sonoma and Ventura that had big fires in their areas, and it took a long time for them to get some of their cleanup started. In fact, Sonoma was almost 5 to 6 months before they even started, and we're still working on it after about a year. So we were pretty proud by the fact that we actually got our entire area cleaned up in 4 months. Now, there were some concerns about some of the cleanups, and we've been trying to deal with those issues with the state. Some of them have not gone as satisfactory as we would like, but we haven't given up. In fact, I just had a conversation with Senator Dolly's office the other day about some of the issues. I do want to talk about fire itself. I helped author an ordinance to help have defensible space here in the county and to help protect neighbors from people who don't take care of their properties, particularly absentee landlords. And also, I've been working on establishing a new fire station on the south end of my district.
Thank you. Dale?
Management. We need to manage these areas. We need to manage the brush. It's gotten built up for decades, and now we are addressing it. We're doing a great job. We need to get these prison camps coming over from Lewiston, which they've been doing a lot of, and Sugar Pine. They are very cheap, very affordable for the county instead of hiring private contractors. And where's my phone just went? There is a new AFG grant, I believe $315 million available through that to help out these rural areas. That's a FEMA fund. And we need to be very aggressive to go after these funds because we could make a huge difference in this fire mitigation with this extra money.
Thank you. Leonard, you'll be first on the next question. As you look at the funding for Shasta County, what is your top priority for the discretionary funding?
Well, it has and always continues to be public safety. As I mentioned earlier, when you say discretionary, you're sort of talking about our general fund dollars and what we can spend. People need to know we have about half $500 million budget, but pretty much 85% of that is state money for state programs like public health, mental health, and the different programs that the state has that we have to administer for them. So our actual general fund dollars is not that much. And we donate our budget about 80% of that for public safety. That is my number one priority, always has been my number one priority. I am, like I said, for 31 years in law enforcement. I know how important public safety is for all of us each and every day.
Thank you. Dale?
100% public safety. We've got to get the crime under control in this county. We also need to spur economic development, but it's hard to get businesses to come here when they Google Reading and they look at the crime rates of Shasta County and the hub of which is Reading. Like he stated, there's not a lot of extra discretionary money. We do have over $9 million of AB 109 money coming into the area, and it could definitely be spent a lot better than it's being spent now to address these crime problems and to hold criminals accountable.
Thank you. Susan?
Public safety, that's on top of the awareness on everybody's mind. And as the two people sitting up here, if you don't clean up your crime, the businesses aren't going to come to Shasta County. And they look at it as, why would I come and have somebody sleeping in my doorway? And we, as a business owner, we face that every day. We face them coming in and stealing from us. We face that they're doing drugs right in front of our door. And we've actually had issues where women said, can you come out and get me out of my car? Because the crime is so bad and they're afraid to get out of their car. So public safety is the #1 issue for me also.
Thank you. Dale, first on the next question. What specific steps would you introduce to promote, sort of a segue from what you were saying, promote economic development in our county?
We need to get rid of all the red tape. I'm sure there's probably a few of you in here who were affected by the car fire and are still trying to rebuild. I just met with a bunch of people out in the Keswick area and the Old Shasta area that are still trying to jump through the hoops to get their place rebuilt. We need to get rid of the one more system. And that's when you turn your plans in and they ding you on the electrical, you fix that, you get your architect to bring it back, and then they go after the plumbing. It's just the one more. We can't have that. We need to have a streamlined process. We need to lower impact fees to get businesses to come here. Right now, it's just too much red tape. I worked all over the Western United States, and when I would tell people I was from Shasta County, every one of them had some kind of horror story to tell me, and we just need to streamline the process.
Thank you. Susan.
One of the issues with economic development is getting these large corporations to come up here. They feel like they're too far away, but they don't realize that it's not that far away to get to the big cities. We have the opportunities to set incentives to bring them up, give them a tax break for a couple of years, and then they'll come up and bring the better income jobs. The fast food industries and the food industries are coming up here, so it can't be that hard. We're not making it difficult for them, but the larger corporations where they can't build in the Bay Area anymore, they need to know that we would take care of them if they come up and give our citizens, because our citizens want to work. I mean, I have not talked to anybody that doesn't have 2 or 3 jobs that wants a real good paying job. So if we can focus on giving them incentives, giving them a little bit of a tax break for just a couple of years, I think you would get the larger corporations to come into Shasta County.
Thank you. Leonard?
Well, first of all, with economic development, it's going to go where there's an infrastructure. So when we talk about all these things with big businesses and where they're going to go, the county only really has 2 places they're interested in. One is on Knighton Road on I-5, the other is up at Mountain Gate. We tried to do one at Knighton Road and the voters voted it down, so we weren't able to put something there. But quite frankly, though, if you want a big business to move here, it's going to be in the city of Reading because they have the water, the sewer, the power to support them. The county doesn't have that. So what the county needs to work on, I've worked on this a couple of times, I'm still trying to get this thing to go, is we have to think more regionally. So the cities and the county need to work together and have a tax sharing agreement that supports all of us so we all do well when the whole area does well. Otherwise, we're fighting each other for, okay, I'm gonna give this person a discount to try to get them to move into my area and take the sales tax from you. So it's more of working together as a region to make this happen.
Thank you. Susan, you're going to be first on the next question. Shasta County Public Health has been addressing adverse childhood experiences, also known as ACEs. So we think that this county has high adverse childhood experiences. What ideas do you have to serve the youth to build a resilient youth to overcome this?
As I said, I work for the West Valley football program. The youth is very important, and if we could reach out and give them more I keep using the word incentives, but let them join these programs, let them do the after-school programs, make them feel a part of it, make them feel like they matter too, because our future is our youth. And in public health, they have to focus on the immunizations, they have to focus on all these different things that come into it. And it comes down to the county supporting our school programs. I think that these kids deserve a chance also.
Thank you. Leonard?
Well, adverse childhood experiences are critically important, and the problem with Shasta County is we have way too many of them. If you have more than 2 adverse childhood experiences, your chances of a child growing up start dropping, as far as growing up in a good way, drop dramatically. The perfect example is the alleged murderer at Russell Hunt's house had some childhood experiences that certainly hurt him, and I think that's a big issue where he ended up. So we need to work, I think, on the system with the parents and those who are raising kids to realize what's happening to break that cycle. And to that end, the state, the governor has appointed a doctor to oversee, that he is sort of his surgeon general for the state to oversee the program, and her focus is on ACEs to make an entire improvement for the entire state, to help a better system for us to raise our kids in, to keep them out of these experiences.
Thank you. Dale?
I've attended quite a few meetings on ACEs and the adverse effects that it has on our youth, and we need help on this for sure. There's a lot of things we can do in the schools, and we need to get them early. We need to get them in the, right out of kindergarten in the early school, times. Once they're in high school, you've pretty much already lost these kids that have had all these effects. We've got a tough problem here in Shasta County where both parents are working, or both parents are criminals. There's a lot of that going on too. And these kids, it's generation after generation. I talk to law enforcement officers that are like, oh yeah, I arrested that kid's granddad. It's sad. And we need to address these problems. We need to get into the school systems and help these kids. Better counseling, better resources for them to go to so we can break this cycle, because it is a cycle.
Thank you. Susan, you already answered this question, right? Have you answered this question? Okay, yeah, you started it. All right. Leonard, you answer the next question first, and the next question is about water. Water is an issue. How will you get people to understand the importance of the Enterprise Anderson groundwater sustainability effort?
Well, everybody knows that when there's a drought, there's a shortage of water. And what the state's trying to do is focus on more of the groundwater. But they're being very careful because in the San Joaquin Valley, they allowed them to overpump their groundwater aquifers, and now they're having even additional problems with subsidence of the land and those issues. We're very fortunate here in our area, underneath the South Redding and Anderson, is a huge aquifer, somewhere in the neighborhood of 4.5 million acre feet of water. That's the same as Shasta Lake. So we have plenty of water in our aquifer, and we need to make sure we manage it. What we have to be careful of is the state doesn't turn around and say, oh, guess what? We want your water, you send your water in the river down to us and you pump your groundwater. Well, it's going to cost you 4 to 5 times as much money to pump the water out of the ground than it is to take it out of the river. So we have to protect our water rights, use it correctly, but make sure the state and the people down south don't take our water.
Thank you. Dale?
Okay, well, I'm not going to repeat all the stuff about the aquifer. I think you covered that. So 100% we need to really fight to keep our water rights from the state. Unfortunately, we are a small county here, and we have to team up with other rural counties when it comes to these big issues like this. When the state starts going after water rights, they're even talking about, besides this, going, metering wells and things like that. And, we've got to stand up against this. I actually live in the city of Redding, and I've been fighting them because they want me on city of Redding water, and I have a well. It's something that, we definitely have to keep an eye on. We have to make sure the state isn't overreaching, because we do have a lot of water up here and they love it.
Thank you. Susan?
The Redding Aquifer is large, but if we keep taking from it, it will not be large anymore. The Cottonwood area has a separate aquifer, and from what I understand, that if you keep taking the water out, the earth is going to take it back, and then you're going to be faced with what they happen in the Bay Area and Southern California, where you start getting large sinkholes. The earth wants its water, and we have to be careful about how much water that we use also in that aquifer. And the state will take, like these two said, the state will take it from us. They want our water. Northern California has a lot of water, but every 7 years, we don't have a lot of water. And we have to reserve it for us, not anybody else. Shasta County needs that water.
Thank you. Dale, you're first on the next question. Can the county do anything to increase the ridership of RABA and make it a better service? Do you have any ideas on this topic?
Yes. But I would not want to see the county start spending money on a system like this. I think with Uber and Lyft and the things they've been able to do. They're even helping out with medical transport now that we're just not seeing. I rode Raba a while back just to kind of see what it was like. And I don't get scared by much, but trying to imagine, a teenage girl trying to go to her first job, I would not want to be the parent that says, hey, go ride that bus. We definitely need help with people that don't have the money to get transportation, and I can't see the county spending a bunch of money on this when only a couple of people are going to ride it. It would be cheaper to have some kind of voucher program just to get an Uber or a Lyft.
Thank you. Susan?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. Can the county do anything to increase the ridership? Can or should the county do anything to increase the ridership of RABA to make it a better service? What ideas do you have?
For the rural areas, we don't have RABA. We have to depend on either walking, riding a bike, which is really scary out in the rural areas, or driving a car. A lot of the people in these rural areas have to get to work to live. And if we as a county can support just even a small part to get the buses to run more into the other areas, people pay for the ride. So would it affect the county as much? Probably, but not as much as we think. It also doesn't run at night. So if you have a nighttime job, then you have another issue. So I think that to get more people to ride, it has to be in the right areas and at the right times. Thank you. Leonard?
Well, first of all, RABA is not a county function. It does not sit underneath the county or actually the city. It's under the Shasta Regional Transportation Agency, which is a separate agency that oversees part of the operations of RABA. RABA has their own board, and they're sort of like the step sister of the transportation agency. So the monies that they use are from fare box ratios and from the monies that comes from the state to help support that kind of transportation for those who don't have any other means of being a way to get around. So it doesn't cost the county money. We're not putting money into it. We do try, as I do sit on the transportation agency, and we do try to find other ways to increase ridership by finding routes that are being used by more people, as well as trying now to see if there's some Sunday routes for people who need to go to church or work on Sunday. So we're trying things like that, but again, it's not a drain on the city or the county.
Thank you. Susan, you're first on the next question. What specific ideas do you have to alleviate homelessness? Fairly loaded.
Yes, it is. We have to look at what other cities have done to control their homelessness problems, but right now there's not a lot of cities that have that control. I think that having a mental health department more available for them, making them accountable for the crimes that they do on the ones that are creating crimes. Homelessness, to me, is more on the issue for the people that lost their homes in the car fire. The rents went up quite a bit, and their median income is about $23,000 a year, according to the 2018 census. Most places, when you rent somewhere, they require 2/3 of your income. By the time your taxes come out of your check, you are no longer at the 2/3. So these people are homeless. The other ad of the homeless population, we need the mental health department to help us out with that.
Thank you. Leonard?
Well, Susan, you're correct. If one of us knew the direct answer to that, we'd all be famous. So, homelessness did not occur overnight. It's been something that's been coming on for quite some time, and we've just mentioned a couple already. Certainly the recession had an impact on it. AB 109, the release of state prisoners back into our community. Those who have substance abuse, those who are dealing with mental health illnesses, those who choose that as a lifestyle, and those who are just criminals who are preying on the rest of the people out there and taking advantage of the situation. I was at a meeting this last week, and instead of talking about affordable housing, they talked about housing affordability, changing it so people have jobs that provide enough wages where they can actually get into a house or an apartment, and building things that aren't so expensive. So we're going to work towards that. But for me, here's what I see it as. Homeless people need assistance, mental health sufferers need services, criminals need to be arrested, addicted offenders need treatment, and those transients who choose to live outside the norm need to be held accountable.
Thank you. Dale?
As someone who sat on the continuum of care for over 2 years and attended meetings there over 5 years, our group also did the point in time count where we go out and count the homeless 2 years in a row. I have a very good working knowledge of how the money comes into this county, how it's spent, and what we can do better at. There's definitely, the toxic charities that are just enabling, and then all that trash ends up in our waterways, our parks. There's the groups that are actually helping. We need to be getting that money that comes into our continuum of care to those organizations that are actually helping, that are actually solution-based and have positive results, not just handing the money out to every group that says they want to help. Michael Johnson, down in the city of Anderson's chief of police, came up with a great idea on the Life Center, and I think that's the first step we need to introduce to get things on track. I don't have enough time to explain it, but you can Google his presentation. That was Michael Johnson from APD.
Thank you. Leonard, first on the next question. Do you favor citizen representation on law enforcement investigations?
Well, I'm going to assume you're talking about some internal affairs investigation, because, obviously I don't see having citizens on police investigations of crimes.
I did not write the question, but I am presuming that your presumption is correct.
That when I was the police chief, one of the things that we did each and every year was invite the grand jury in to review all of our internal affairs investigations. Not that we had that many. I think we would average about 15 to 17 a year. Of those, probably 14 of them were initiated by the department itself, not by people complaining. Most of the complaints we dealt with were typically maybe rudeness or something like that on the officer. I remember once or twice maybe use of force was an issue. But we would invite the grand jury to come in and review all of our case files. And they actually took us up on that, about every 2 or 3 years. And they were very satisfied with the results of our investigations and what we were doing. To have a citizen come in as an independent person without any background would be, I think, a little bit difficult. So unless I saw something change that would make me think that was needed, I'm not sure that it's necessary at this time.
Thank you. Dale?
I'm going to assume the question was worded the way he responded also. That was kind of tough. But yes, we already have the grand jury in place as this. They're citizens. The other thing that I would encourage each and every one of you to do is go on a ride along, see what they're actually dealing with out there. It's crazy. It's just go, go, go from one call to another as fast as you can imagine, and you can see what they're actually doing. So I would think we already have enough eyes as citizens that I don't really see anything new, because I'm still not exactly sure what they're asking with that question.
Thank you. Susan?
I am too. The police departments have an internal affairs division because that's their responsibility to police each other. To have the grand jury, these people have to be turn in an application, and so you know that they're going to do the right thing. To have just an everyday citizen out there with the police force, I totally disagree with that, because as the police chief, he does have to govern his employees, and they do have a setup for that. And I believe that as a citizen, you do have a right to question what they're doing. But to actually be involved in the policing of it, these guys are trained, and they're trained professionally. I don't know if a citizen has the ability to make those choices on how an officer responds.
Thank you. Dale, you're first on the next question, and the next question is, public safety may be well served by a healthy public. How do you propose to make any necessary changes in our education and health services in this county to build a healthier public?
I think this goes right back to the ACEs, where we need to get these kids when they're young. We need to get them educated. And we need, we need help for the ones who have been abused, who have these ACEs problems. I'm a big proponent for shop classes. I've seen all these high schools go away from the shop classes. I've worked a lot. I've owned pretty much a business here all my life, and every line of work I went into, I used more from the things I learned in my shop class than I did in any of the other classes. And it's just tough seeing these kids come out, and I would hire them in my business, and they didn't even know how to run a screwdriver. And I'm not kidding. You got to sit there all day long and go lefty loosey, righty tighty. It's really frustrating, and other business owners I talk to are having the same problems, especially out in the construction field. These kids just don't have the basic skills.
Thank you, Susan. It starts at home, but it also the schools. With the West Valley football program, our kids have to do 4 work days out in the field. You teach them. We need, as a community, need to be mentors to these children. Not every parent is a good parent. Not every good parent knows what to do. But our children are suffering. I'm not sure how long ago, maybe Mr. Modi can answer this, but we used to have a DARE program, and my son is 32 years old, and I know more about drugs from him, from the DARE program, than I would have ever known, because that's not my lifestyle. But they taught the kids how important it was to stay away from the drugs, stay away from the crime. And those kind of programs depend on the school. I don't think that's a county thing. They can provide the money for that. But I think that getting back into holding kids accountable when they do commit a crime is very important. As a parent, when a child did wrong, you punished them. And I think that some schools have their hands tied where they can't suspend them. That there's a lot of bullying, and we need to address those issues, quite frankly, because some of the parents just aren't doing it. Thank you. Leonard?
Yeah, I agree with Susan. I'm not sure this is really a county issue. I think it is a parental issue, and then in some cases, perhaps it's a school issue where bullying is being allowed, that school administrators need to step up to that. If it's keeping kids healthy, I guess that's an issue of trying to get kids out away from their phones and actually go outside and play. I knew when I grew up, my mom said, get the heck out of here and come back when the sun goes down. So I think Susan's correct. I wish we had the DARE program like we used to. It was very effective as far as helping kids, I think, at least recognize the issues with drugs and what it might be in the future. But the rest of it, I think, as far as what is being addressed, other than First 5 Shasta, which is certainly a good program that helps kids early on and helps parents realize their responsibilities in the first 5 years of kids being raised, makes a huge impact.
Okay, this is next to the last question, just so that you get some idea of where we're going. Why, Susan, you're first. Why do you think that you're the best candidate to represent District 2 as a supervisor? Why, no problem. Why do you believe that you are the best candidate to represent District 2 as the supervisor?
I have a direct connection with the community. Being a business owner, I understand that there's a budget. I understand how hard it is to make the money in Shasta County. I raised a family on a budget. I also know that we have a lot more issues, infrastructure. We have some rural areas. Ono is having an effect from the car fire. The Rainbow Lake is filling up with the runoff. And that affects not only Ono, it also affects North Cottonwood Creek, which affects Cottonwood Creek, which is your salmon. So it's going to affect everything. For what I would bring to the Board of Supervisors is a new perspective, a way to get back with the people. We need to be in touch with our citizens, and they need to be able to have a connection with us. And I think that's very, very important.
Thank you. Leonard?
Well, I think it's pretty clear from my experience in education. I've had a lot of background in this area, know a lot about the issues already. I think one of the things that's important for people to recognize is we are a rural county in a sense up here, and a lot of people in Sacramento think that the state stops at Sacramento. You always hear about Northern California being the Bay Area. and I had to fight that all the time when I'm down there. But due to my experience for the last 7 years on the CSAC board and their executive committee as well, I mean, that's a committee of about 13 people. We get a chance to meet with the governor and his staff on a somewhat regular basis. I built a reputation now that allows me to have a bigger impact and have a voice for the North State down there. And they realize that there is something above Sacramento. So I think that's important. But also, I want to just tell you, I've been very involved in this community for a lot of years. I've been on the Centerville Water Board, Mercy Foundation, YMCA, Rotary, Leadership Reading, Northern California Veterans Cemetery. So I have a lot of close connections to this community.
Thank you. Dale?
There's 58 counties in California, and we're one of the worst as far as crime. There's 488 cities in California, and Redding, as she stated, is the 17th worst as far as crime. Yes, Sacramento has definitely put a stranglehold with some of their ridiculous laws, but why aren't we the best? Currently, what we're doing is just not working. We need to get after the criminal element. We need to hold people accountable. I've been a business owner for most of the last 30 years. The last 5 or 6 years, I've spent thousands of hours volunteering for this community, going to hundreds of different meetings and getting a good perspective of what's going on in this county. Our biggest problem is the homelessness, and I don't see any other people going to these meetings to get an idea of what's going on. I've been doing all this while working 50 to 60 hours a week. Imagine what I could do when I'm working for you full time.
Thank you. Leonard, you're first on this last question, and then we'll move to the closing. Who is your hero or heroine, and why?
My daughter. My daughter is an exceptional person who sees the world with all the possibilities in it, without all the prejudices that get in it. She sees it as an opportunity to do a lot of things. My wife and I were talking to her when she was after she got out of college, to ask her what she wanted to do. She's actually working on her PhD right now. She told us she wants to do it all. I'm serious. She wants to have the career. She wants to have family. She wants to have kids. She's married now. She sees the world as a place that can be better, and she's working hard to get there. And I just have to admire her for putting that much hope moving forward. And that tells me that there is hope for our next generation. So I'm very proud of her.
Thank you. Dale, same question.
My mother, without a doubt, as a single mother here in Shasta County, working 1 to 2 jobs while trying to raise myself and my sister, it was tough. I saw it firsthand. The struggles, the sacrifices she made. In the mid-'80s, I started professionally BMX racing, and we used to have to clip coupons just to get to the races. The other kids were staying in nice motels, and we were sleeping in the back of our pickup. She sacrificed everything to give me the opportunity. Sorry, I'm going to get a little emotional. She's in the hospital right now down in Sacramento, having a rough time. So I'll just end it with that.
Thank you. Susan?
Sorry to hear about your mother. I'm going to get in trouble for this one because my husband's sitting in the back and so is my mother. When I was younger, my daddy was my hero. But as a mother, my life has changed. My 2 sons serving in the military are my heroes. They do what no other person can do. My oldest was in the Air Force. He was in counterterrorism. He has seen the worst. He's suffering with PTSD today. But he put himself through school. He's almost, which is crazy. I'm just doing things in the Air Force. He's almost completed his master's. My youngest is now serving in the Navy, and he is a beach master, which when the Marines leave the ship on the amphibians, my son stands out on the beach and directs the ships with orange flags. Not a smart job, but that's what he's doing. So those 2 boys are my heroes.
Thank you very much. And now for our closing, we'll give you 3 minutes for our closing. And actually, we're going to start with you, Dale. So take it away.
I got the opening and the closing.
It's the way the questions went.
Again, want to thank each and every one of you for coming out tonight. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for putting this on. It's no easy task, I know, to find a time that everyone can make. I just want to reiterate, we can do better. This county deserves better. It's one of the most beautiful places to live. As I stated, I've been a business owner here for almost 30 years. Other than a 3-year stint, I went into the corporate world and I worked all over the Western United States. Pretty much every town I worked in, whether it was Salt Lake City or Bellingham, Washington, I got offered jobs. I just couldn't pull the trigger. They were definitely for more money, but this place is so beautiful. I love Shasta County. There's no better place to live, but we can do better. We shouldn't be one of the worst places to live. We shouldn't be the top 6 stolen cars in the nation. We should have a safe community. We shouldn't have to go out in front of our business every morning and hose down the feces and pick up the needles. There are workable solutions. When you're at the bottom, it's easy to look at the 471 other cities and what they're doing better than us. We don't have to reinvent the wheel here. We just have to look at all these other places and figure out the programs that are working. There's effective solutions so readily available, and we just need to implement them to make Shasta County a safer place to live, and the economic development will follow.
Thank you. Susan?
I do too also love Shasta County. When I was in the military, I saw Minneapolis, Minnesota, where they locked their kids in the school. It was really scary because the gangs would threaten to shoot them as they went in. I also was stationed in South Dakota, and so I saw the very rural areas. Shasta County, and I came home. I told my parents I would never come back to Shasta County, but I love my county. I even sent my son home when we were in Minneapolis. I sent him home back to my parents so that he would be safe in the schools. We in Shasta County have the most beautiful area that you could ever see. I also believe that we do have a chance to rebuild our community like it was 20 years ago, so that our children will come back. But we need to bring the income back so our kids go into 4-year colleges. We need to bring a 4-year college here, but they're leaving and they're not coming back because there's no jobs here. They don't want to work at a minimum wage job. They don't want to try to raise their family on a $23,000 income. We need to bring the industry here, and so that the children will come back. I also believe that we need to get more kids into activities after school. I think that's very, very important. It gives them a feeling of, I'm doing something here. But we can also do things in our community to express as adults. You know, I don't believe in a handout, I believe in a hand up. And unfortunately, I have talked to some police officers that said, these people are not even from here, they're coming from all over the country. And public safety is very, very important because our kids can't go out and play, like Supervisor Modi said. They don't want to, they're scared. Our parks, if you get them into the parks, parents are afraid they're gonna pick up the needles, or it's just not a safe environment. I feel that Shasta County is very, very important to me. I love where I live. I don't wanna live anywhere else. And I guarantee that I will never leave, no matter how bad it gets, and I will fight to make it work. I believe in Shasta County. I believe that we can go back to the 20 years ago, the 30 years ago, where we were the top 5 places to live in America, not just California, in America. We need to take a bite out of crime, as the dog used to say on the commercial. And we are capable of doing that. We just have to support our police officers and our sheriff deputies, especially in the rural areas.
Thank you. Leonard?
Yeah, first I just want to correct some of the inaccurate information that was put out here by one of the candidates. First of all, there's a lot of talk about 400 cities and we should be dealing with 400 cities. That's the issue. We're not a city, we're a county. We have a whole different set of rules and things we have to deal with. Perhaps the city of Reading should be looking at some of these issues. Second, there was talk about the county shouldn't bail out Jones Valley. We put all that money into Jones Valley. I want to make sure you understand, the county did not put any money into the Jones Valley water system. They got a $6 million grant and a $4 million no-interest loan for 30 years. We did not put money in. We helped them, but we did not put money in there. There's talk about, cleaning up after the fires and stuff. Well, the county helped the McConnell Foundation get a $12 million grant that's doing cleanup area out on Lower Springs Road, and Old Shasta and other places, and there's a big chance we can get maybe 35 million next year. So we're working on that. There's talk about the AB 109 money being misused. There's a lot of restrictions on AB 109 money. It has to be used, can't be used just for incarceration. It has to be used for rehabilitation, and a lot of it goes to probation. That's the restrictions that are on it. And then finally, I want to talk a little bit about the Adult Rehabilitation Center and the people saying that you gave back all this money. Let me tell you the rest of the story they're not telling you. Yes, we could have gotten $20 million to build the ARC. The problem was that was never the issue. It was how to run it. Right. The sheriff told us it would take an additional $1.9 million to run it. We said, okay, we're going to stretch ourselves, we're going to make it. The problem was a month later, it was now 2.1 million. A couple months later, it was 2.9 million. A month later, it was 3.1 million. Then it was 3.4 million. It got way beyond anything we could afford. And so we would have had to lay off deputies. And that did not make any sense whatsoever. Why would we want to do that? So the next question is, well, why don't you just build it and keep it there until you could use it later? Well, it's state money, of course, that comes with the string. And the string was, after it was completed, you had to have it operational running in 90 days. Otherwise, the state could take it back. Now think about that. Now, that's not true. It had to be operational, and we maintained operational for the 30 years until the grant was forgiven. If we had done that and weren't able to operate that thing, this is when they were overcrowded in prison, we would have had a state prison in Reading. I wasn't willing to chance that to have in our community have a state prison. So it just needed the correct information regarding that. You know, I had a whole list of things here that I'm happy to share with people. But you know, I have been involved in a lot of things over the last 11 years. We've got, as was mentioned, the jail bed thing. We got 100 more beds instead of the 64 at 25% of the cost. So we made good decisions financially that helped the county that still got people in jail, but protected our budget. And I'd be happy to share any information with all the other accomplishments I've had in the last 12 years if you'd like to talk to me afterwards. Thank you very much.
Let's give these folks a big hand. It is really hard work to sit up there and answer these questions that you don't know what they're going to ask and whether you'll quite understand the question the way it's presented. So I really do appreciate your help. I want to remind you that Election Day is March 3rd. You have an opportunity to vote at the elections office, by mail, or at your polling place. Also over here, we have the census person who is actually looking for people who will work as census workers. It's a paid job. If you know anybody that will help us out with the census, that would be great. I don't know if those of you who are here understand that in Shasta County, there are several severely undercounted census tracts. And so this year, we have made a major effort to try and get everybody in Shasta County counted. That gets us money to deal with some of our issues. And that also will help us redraw our supervisor district lines, which we will look at after the census is done. So I'm sure these folks are willing to stay and talk to you. I know they are. They have some election materials in the back. And on behalf of the League of Women Voters, thank you so much for coming out on this chilly night.